Well, good evening, everybody. This is Connor Bourne here coming to you live from sunny Orlando, Florida here as we get to discuss and chat about a little Friends Stream Sports action. Very excited to get to be with everybody here this evening. Rutledge is nowhere to be found as per the case. So that is okay. We are okay. We will be there. I am going to switch what we're talking about here. I don't want anybody to come in thinking that this is a I don't want anybody to come in to think that this is a NBA 2K stream, which is not. That's okay though. We're just doing a little podcast here this evening, and we're very, very thankful for that. So before we get in, just wanted to thank all of our viewers and our listeners and our watchers here this evening. And we are very thankful for everybody to get to participate here with us tonight. So with that, without further ado, let's jump in here. I'm going to be giving you some sports takes here this evening, some sports talks and some sports thoughts. And we're very, very thankful. Feel free to jump in on the chat and we'll go from there. So here in our first quarter of Friends Stream Sports tonight, I want to share with you a few of my thoughts that I have, a few rants, if you will, about some big NFL stories that we have seen here in these recent weeks. Number one, the first story is the Tim Tebow story. I do not know who all has been following it. A lot of people have been following it. It's been making a lot of headlines. It's been great for sports media because of all the headlines that it is creating and all the headlines that it is generating. That Urban Meyer was going to bring Tim Tebow in, not to play quarterback, but to play tight end for sort of a tryout-esque type situation. So very, very controversial, for a variety of reasons. Number one, if Tim Tebow could get a shot, why not? A guy like Colin Kaepernick, among many, many others. And we're not going to get into that debate tonight, but here's one of the things that I have always kind of felt, especially once Tim Tebow got into this situation with the Jags, was, number one, being on the 90-man roster is a whole lot different than being on the 53-man roster, especially playing for your college coach and being able to come in as a guy with that relationship with your college coach on that 90-man roster. I've always kind of felt that Tim Tebow might be good enough to make a 90-man roster, at least from a tryout perspective, but I would eat these glasses on my face, deep fry them and eat them all up if Tim Tebow made a 53-man roster. As a tight end, as a quarterback, as a special teams player, Tim Tebow, I will be very, very surprised if that is the case. Now, furthermore, the interesting thing apparently that has come out is that just recently, as of, I believe it was today, the Jacksonville Jaguars are potentially going to reverse course on this. Came out from Pro Football Talk today that bringing Tim Tebow in on the 90-man roster is in a, quote, holding pattern for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And not only do we see another time where Urban Meyer makes a decision that he might reverse course on, and we'll see if he ends up reversing course on it. Not only do we see that again, but we saw that once. Once is enough, especially for a brand new coach. I think Urban Meyer is getting a brand new, very rude introduction into the NFL, and he's kind of going through it. Don't feel too sorry for the guy, because I'm sure he had a lot of people tell him, hey, it's not like college. It's not like you have free reign like you used to. But, I think now, at least for Urban Meyer's sake, I hope that Tim Tebow at least makes it into, maybe not through the end of, but at least into some sort of rookie, mini camp. I know rookie mini camps are going on now, an OTA type situation, just for the opportunity for Urban Meyer to not have to backtrack on something else. So that is something that is very interesting that I am finding very, very interesting. And we'll continue to report on that. I hope Rutledge feels a little bit better after our debate show, that he can come back on again. We actually have a little bit of a surprise for that next week, but we'll be following the Urban Meyer and Tim Tebow story as these stories come out. So that's kind of story number one of the evening as it relates to NFL. Story number two is Aaron Rodgers. There's been a lot of news about Aaron Rodgers lately, and a lot of news is, I've kind of felt is overblown, but there is a story that I actually kind of like that I heard about today. And that is the specifics for a deal from the Denver Broncos to the Green Bay Packers for Aaron Rodgers has been leaked, had come out. And the big part of that deal was 3 first-round draft picks. And the fact that the Green Bay Packers apparently didn't even consider that to get the full deal, in essence, was Drew Lock, 3 first-round draft picks, Bradley Chubb, and an offensive lineman. Bradley Chubb, the defensive end, and then an offensive lineman for Aaron Rodgers. And it was a mid-round pick, I believe, a third or fourth round pick. And the fact that the Green Bay Packers turned that down immediately should signal a couple of things. Number one, I think there's a lot of folks that are maybe rightly considering the value and how good Jordan Love actually is and actually can be for the organization. But number two, I think that I don't mind that the Green Bay Packers turned this down. I don't mind it at all. I was talking to Rutledge actually a while back, and as we were chatting about some of these Aaron Rodgers stuff, I said, Rutledge, one rule in life, there's many rules in life, but one rule in life is to never kill the golden goose. Don't kill the golden goose. The Green Bay Packers went from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers to lead their franchise as quarterbacks. You're not going to, if you go 3 for 3 and let's say the Packers draft the next guy that can carry them for the next 15 years, like that's the luckiest thing ever. The fact that the Packers only have 2 Super Bowls with having Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers be their last 2 main starting quarterbacks, I mean, that is not too good for the Packers organization. But the fact that they are able to be a team that can keep Rodgers. He's 37 years old right now. He's got 3 years left on his contract, and a team that can keep Aaron Rodgers around and try to convince him to stay and do whatever they can to convince him to stay. I kind of think there's some value there, especially because you're giving up on 3 first-round picks, but you're also gaining 3 first-round picks for a whole lot of question marks. And you know what you have in Aaron Rodgers, and especially at the quarterback position, there is big-time value in being set with where you go. So that's kind of story number 2. We'll be following that story as that continues. I'm more of a fan of the Packers should do whatever it takes to keep Aaron Rodgers, not necessarily for Aaron Rodgers' sake, but for the Packers' sake, because they're a really good franchise and a really good organization, and they should try to keep a really good quarterback around, maybe make one more run at a Super Bowl. And that leads me to kind of our third story here. We've talked about a guy who used to play quarterback. We talked about a guy who is a really old quarterback. Now we're talking about a guy who's a really young quarterback here, and that is our best friend. Be our best friend. Maybe you're not our best friend, but we'd love for you to be our best friend, Justin Herbert here of the Los Angeles Chargers. I just want to give a brief Justin Herbert update. Justin, we would still love to have you on the show. Rutledge and I would buy the brand new Madden just to play it with you, and we'd buy PS5s. Heard it here first. Rutledge said he would buy a PS5 if he could play with you, Justin Herbert. I think Rutledge might actually really be mad at me now. But one of the big things that we're seeing here with the Chargers, one of their big themes was to have the offensive line and be able to fix the offensive line And they think they did that. They did a nice little overhaul. They drafted the tackle out of Northwestern with their first pick of the draft, and they're definitely banking on the offensive line being better, which is going to be really, really critical in any NFL division. So you got that. I think that losing Hunter Henry and replacing him with Jared Cook is okay. It's not optimal. It's a little bit of a downgrade, but we'll see there. I think that Austin Eckler is going to be much more important for Justin Herbert as kind of that security blanket coming in there as a tight end type. It's a running back, but he's a dual threat running back, so he can grab the ball in positions where tight ends would also be grabbing the football. So definitely excited about Justin Herbert. I kind of think he could be a sleeper MVP kind of pick. So we'll see how that goes. So those are some NFL stories I've been following. I hope all of our viewers and our fans are also following us here on and some of these NFL stories. So next up, we have we're going to switch gears ever so gently from the NFL here over to the NBA. If you're streaming here and on Twitch and you think this is an NBA 2K stream, my apologies, but that's okay. We'll figure it out here. And I'm glad that you are watching, and I hope that you enjoy some of my sports takes and some of my sports thoughts here this evening. So as we switch gears into the NBA, we're going to do a quick live look into what's going on in the Eastern Conference play-in game here, as the Indiana Pacers are really, really running it up on the Charlotte Hornets, which would mean that the Charlotte Hornets get to start their summer a little bit early, and the Indiana Pacers get to keep on playing basketball. In the Eastern Conference, as it relates to the play-in tournament, I think that it created a lot of value and a lot of fun towards the end of the regular season. But if you were to ask me, what do I think about the thank you for the spam, everybody. What do I think about the NBA play-in series? And I think that the NBA play-in series for the East is not going to amount to a hill of beans outside of some big time media coverage within that. So definitely we are seeing that play out. Just remember, whoever gets the 7 seed will play the Brooklyn Nets. And the Brooklyn Nets, they're really good. They had a dunk the other night that seemed like, something out of a fashion show. And then the 8 seed will get to play Philly with one of the MVP candidates, Joel Embiid. So a lot of fun in terms of how the season ended. I don't think it's going to amount to a lot as it relates to to a deep playoff run. Now in the West, I think that there is some potential for a deep run, especially between the Warriors and the Lakers, which is the first game, oddly enough. Remember, whoever wins the Warriors versus Lakers game will get to go play the Jazz as the 7 seed, and then whoever comes in as the 8, or pardon me, whoever is the 7 seed gets to play the Suns, and whoever's the 8th seed ends up being that 8th seed gets to play the Jazz. Now, I'll say this: I think if whoever ends up playing the Jazz actually might have a better shot at knocking off the 1 seed as opposed to the Suns. I know Chris Paul has not had a ton of deep playoff experience, but I think being a floor general and having the amount of playoff experience that he has, along with a great stud like Devin Booker, I think is a really, really important piece to have. And I would rather play the Jazz than the Suns in the first round of the playoffs. That's your first hot take here of the evening. So going to be following that in our picks for the evening. I'm going to be picking the Western Conference play-in kind of first round games, if you will. So those are some of my quick thoughts here on the NBA play-in predictions. Now, as we move into MVP thoughts and really how I feel about them, I saw a quick article from FanDuel that really showed that Nikola Jokic is the clear-cut favorite for the MVP. He might get a unanimous MVP. According to FanDuel, stats were you had Jokic, and then after that you had Steph Curry, Joel Embiid, Giannis, and Chris Paul. The only really thing that I would change to that is I would have Jokic, Curry, Chris Paul, probably Embiid, then Giannis. But at that point, Giannis is so far ahead. You're really just kind of determining who's going to be the first and second losers of the MVP race. I do think that if there was just hey, let's give a tip of the cap award to some folks, I think that Chris Paul and Steph Curry definitely deserve a tip of the cap to just for the way that they have led their teams this year and this season. So that is those are some of my thoughts there. Chris Paul has had a ton of great intangibles. Steph Curry also being able to continue to score at the rate he is by being the main guy on his team is very, very impressive for sure. So those are some NBA MVP thoughts here on Friends Stream Sports. So finally, want to just touch briefly on another fun little thought that I think is important. And that is, I would like to just share my thoughts of a bad team that I think is in good shape heading into this year. And by bad team, I mean a team that did not make the playoffs. If you weren't at least the 10th best team in your conference, you're kind of a bad team. And I think that the New Orleans Pelicans actually are in a really good position to take that next step and not just compete for a playoff spot next year, but to maybe even win a series in the playoffs. It's really good that the Pelicans aren't near the Cade Cunningham sweepstakes. Looking at you, Orlando Magic, so they can try to maybe move some pieces that they find some value, or other teams might find some value. Looking at you, Lonzo Ball, and be able to add just some real nice value to their team. And to that, I think the one thing that if you're looking at off-season acquisitions, that's going to be really important is going to be to add three-point shooting for the New Orleans Pelicans. The Pelicans ranked 26th in the NBA this season in three-point percentage. And for a Stan Van Gundy coach team, that is not going to cut it, not in the slightest. So free agents, looking at a guy like Duncan Robinson, I think you can make a Duncan Robinson kind of Dragic combo trade for like Alonzo Ball, maybe another piece there from New Orleans, kind of a sign and trade type situation. Somehow Alonzo's still getting some love, so I would move off of that Lonzo train ASAP. Maybe grab a Duncan Robinson, somebody who can really create that spacing to give Zion the space to continue to just do what he does best and just be just awesome right at the rim. So those are some of my NBA thoughts, and we're about halfway through all of my thoughts here this evening. So very, very excited about that. Want to thank the spammers for spamming my chat here this evening. That is no good. But we are going to head into halftime hot takes, which I am very, very excited about. So my halftime hot take here this evening, maybe one day we'll get a sponsor, maybe not. But my halftime hot take this evening, as I keep on drifting back for all of our podcast viewers, you will see if you watch our YouTube channel, you'll see me continue to drift back and drift back and drift back. But now I move back up. So speaking of moving back up, we're talking about Chelsea Football Club versus Man City in the Champions League final. Man City actually played today, lost 3-2, but they were resting a lot of folks, things like that. They've already won the league. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick the Champions League final, give my prediction on that. And that game is being played May 29th at 3 o'clock Eastern, which would be 9 a.m. Hawaiian. So for all those folks that are going to be watching Man City, Chelsea, and Hawaii, you get to have a little bit of pineapple, a little bit of rice, a little fried egg on that with some coffee, and get to enjoy Champions League final. Nevertheless, I've been a big Man City follower here for a little while. I've always loved Pep Guardiola. But my Champions League final prediction is actually going to be 3-2 Chelsea. I know Man City has won the league and they've kind of taken their foot off the gas. And I think that that's a real problem. I think that Pep knows that Man City, he's got to have his team playing really well going into that final, because Chelsea, they're a team that they always come out like they have nothing to lose. And they play very, they just play on attack mode all the time, and they are doing a great job of doing that. So I'm picking Chelsea 3-2. I originally had Man City as the winner, but Pep smoking that cigar on the boat today that I saw. I believe it was on a TikTok video. I think that Pep has a real issue on his hands in terms of focus and finishing out this season strong, which is weird because you want to win Champions League, and he hasn't won a Champions League since his days at Barcelona. But to each their own. To each their own. So those are my halftime hot takes. I'm taking Chelsea 3-2 over Man City. Maybe we'll ask Rutledge next week in our special show what he thinks. So as we head here into the second half of our show, and just want to thank everybody for tuning in and being involved here with us in this show. We're gonna move into MLS, gonna move into our soccer talk, and especially talk about Orlando City. After 5 games, Orlando City has 9 points, which is good enough for second in the East. Woo! Go Orlando City. This is a pro Orlando City show for all those who might not know. Watching the previous game, though, a 1-0 victory, which was it was the kind of game that previous iterations of Orlando City would definitely lose. But somehow they won. They scored a quick early goal, and technically they might have had some chances throughout the rest of the evening. I didn't feel like they actually played all that well throughout the course of the evening. DC United fell into a little bit of bad luck. Orlando had maybe a little bit of good luck, and there was a lot of there's long stretches where Orlando City just had to hang on and absorb everything that DC United was doing. So I know that they have a new coach with new tactics, so it's probably good to get this game at DC kind of early on before this team gets some of their injured players back. That's the other thing. DC United has a lot of injured players. But to be able to have Orlando City play this game early while there's still tactics being implemented, while there's still folks trying to get back from injury, I think could be really positive for Orlando City, because I don't necessarily believe that they were the better team for the majority of the game, but they still came out with the 3 points, which at the end of the day, though, is all that matters. Looking ahead in this schedule, and as I mentioned a few weeks ago, Orlando's in kind of a quick early season stretch where they had a lot of Eastern Conference games. Their next 5 include Toronto, New York Red Bulls, which New York Red Bulls have lost. Toronto has Dom Dwyer now. New York Red Bulls just lost Aaron Long, who is a men's national team defender. Good for Orlando City, bad for United States men's national team, especially going to the Gold Cup. They play Toronto again, and then San Jose, and then Inter Miami. Out of those 5 games, just kind of giving a quick thought, the 2 main games that would be a concern for a loss for me would be the San Jose game, which is 3 days after going to Toronto. So you got to go to Toronto, turn around, come back, play San Jose 3 days later. And then after that, the Inter Miami derby. Derbies are always tricky. And Inter Miami's got some players who have some experience. I give a lot of credit to guys who've been around the block for a while and are savvy veteran players, which Inter Miami has their fair share of, including Left Foot Studios' Breck Shea. We're going to give Breck Shea a little shout out. If I gave Justin Herbert a shout out, I'd love to have Breck Shea on this show. I think he'd be a friend of the show for sure. But that's kind of some thoughts moving forward. And as we round out a little bit of our Orlando City talk, why don't you just give some DK and some Pato updates for those who may not know. One of the big glaring weaknesses right now for Orlando City is the lack of that number 9 position. Right now, Tesho Akindele is in that role, playing that spot. but he is not kind of seen as the long-term solution. So let us just real quick remember, DK's loan expires at the end of the championship playoffs. Right now, he's in the English second tier, trying to get Barnsley up to the first tier. Currently, Barnsley are down 1-0 to City or Swansea City with after the first leg, with the second leg coming this Saturday. So if Barnsley don't make it through after this Saturday, DK could be back into training with Orlando City by June, with the eye on the Toronto game on June 19th as the return date. So always, never want our guys to lose, but wouldn't mind if we get DK back a little bit early. The other player that is in that number 9 slot for Orlando City that should be targeting a return relatively soon. Yet again, I think also could see Pato maybe before the Toronto game. There's that break kind of right in between the New York Red Bulls game and then that Toronto game, kind of games 2 and 3 of our next 5. You got a couple weeks off. Maybe that's probably when they're going to try to bring Pato back into training to get ready for that Toronto game, that second Toronto game. He's currently rehabbing and should be getting relatively close to making his return. But as it relates to transfer news, kind of quiet as of now, but if there's a sale for DK and another injury to an attacker, I could see some Orlando City making some moves to try to bring in some pieces to shore up the offense. Midfield's okay. I love Urso. I love Pereira. I don't love Mendez, but I don't get paid to play Mendez. I think he tries hard, but trying hard doesn't exactly mean that you're doing the right things all the time. But as of now, the transfer news for Orlando City seems to be a touch on the quiet side. So those are some Orlando City updates for you. I hope you enjoy them. And finally, as we look to finish out our time here this evening, what I want to do is, first off, thank all of our viewers and watchers and participators, not our spammers, we don't like them, but everybody else within the FriendStream Sports family. We're very, very thankful for you there. Those who participated in bracket tournaments and NASCAR fantasy. We got a lot of fun stuff that we've still got coming up, and we're excited to unveil that when the time comes. But now, as we kind of round out the show here this evening, what I'm going to do, we've got some more soccer talk. When Rutledge is away, Connor talks soccer. That's how that goes. So what I'm going to do real quick is we've got a big European tournament coming up. The Euros, which was supposed to happen last year, but there was a little global pandemic that kind of hurt that ideology. But what I'm going to do is go through our groups here and kind of just give some early thoughts as to how I think some of these groups are going to shake out here. And the big thing that I'm going to do is rate the groups, what I think in terms of difficulty. So what better place than to start than Group A? Group A includes Turkey, Italy, Wales, and Switzerland. And I'm giving this group a D for strength in terms of don't bother watching. I think Italy will be the strongest team in this group, and it shouldn't have a problem getting out and finding a nice groove into the round of 16. I know Italy should play with great urgency because they didn't even make the World Cup last time around, but this group should not be all that much of an issue for Italy to get through and to be able to maybe try some different lineups, rest some guys, just maybe get some younger players some good times, but also the key players that are going to be critical throughout the course of the tournament, get them into a nice groove. So that's Group A: Turkey, Italy, Wales, and Switzerland. Group B here, we have Denmark, Finland, Belgium, and Russia. I'm giving this a C in terms of strength, average strength. Denmark was a World Cup qualifying team and should continue to have some firepower. But Belgium will always be strong behind the capabilities of Kevin De Bruyne. Love Kevin De Bruyne. I know Eden Hazard is, sometimes we don't know where he's at. He's eating some Belgian chocolate and having a nice, strong Belgian ale as opposed to being on the field. But I definitely see Belgium winning this group as of now, with Denmark coming in second. But don't sleep on Russia. Russia's got some good quality players and can really, kind of make a game really, really hard for a Belgium or a Denmark to see through. Although ultimately I think Russia won't make it out of the group or in the top two. So that's Group B. Group C, we've got Netherlands, Ukraine, Austria, and Northern Macedonia, one of the newer inductees into UEFA. And I'm just going to say C notes for Group A. I give this group a D. I don't think it's a very strong group at all, but just substitute Netherlands for Italy. Netherlands does have some good players. And I think that the Netherlands should be able to use this group stage to catapult themselves into the knockout rounds. So here's where we start to get a little more interesting here. Group D here has England, Croatia, Scotland, and the Czech Republic. I spoke with one of my sources over in England, and he seems to think England has a lot trickier of an out in this group than I do. Scotland is going to look at this as their World Cup final. So is Czech Republic. And Croatia always comes to play. I kind of think Croatia's a little bit longer in the tooth now than they were, as opposed to their World Cup final run just a couple years ago. As it comes to this England team, really looking at all the Euros, I think that England might be the most put together team here of the Euros. I think, if gambling was one of my vices, I think that England, I would put some dough, I'd put some coin on England for sure. So I think the big piece will be Kyle Walker, his injury status in terms of really rounding out that roster. I would love in the group stage to see heavy doses of Phil Foden and Declan Rice. They're in the lineup for England. Man, England's loaded, especially in the midfield. I think that what Gareth Southgate could do as a nice gesture to the other teams is take the midfield that he doesn't start and have them play for the other team. And that would probably be a more challenging competition outside of Croatia and Modric and Rakitic. But for Scotland and Czech Republic, I think that they could maybe get a couple loanies from the England guys on the bench and make it a little bit even more interesting. But I see England to win this group with Croatia being the runner-up. Group E, we've got Spain, Sweden, Poland, and Slovakia. I think let's hope that the Spanish national team still have some spunk. Oh, by the way, for Group D, I'm going to give Group D a C rating, or pardon me, a B minus rating. I think that, with England and Croatia, those are two very, very solid sides, but you definitely have the top tier and the bottom tier of this group. In Group E, we've got Spain, Sweden, Poland, and Slovakia. I'm giving this group a B because, that's assuming that Spain comes to play. Let's hope the Spanish national team still has some spunk in them, as their best days have seemed to have gone away, although Lucho Enrique always has a few tricks up his sleeve. I think that the health of Sergio Ramos and Gerard Piqué are going to be critical. As their main competition will be Poland, as led by Robert Lewandowski. So being able to corral Robert Lewandowski is going to be very critical for the Spanish side. And that brings us into our final group here this evening, Group F, which is Hungary, Portugal, France, and Germany. And I give this group strength rating A+++. This is without a doubt the group of death. Hopefully this shakes out. I know there's a couple third place teams that'll advance. Hopefully this shakes out that Portugal, France, and Germany advance. But I think the big question is which German team will show up. They really struggled in the last World Cup cycle, but being able to compete well is going to be critical. The other interesting news that broke today is that Karim Benzema is back in the lineup for France. It'll be interesting to watch just how that goes in terms of flow with Griezmann. How some of that time gets shared and things like that. Also, always being a Barcelona follower, always interested to see the health of our dear center back, Samuel Umtiti. Those are some of my thoughts as it relates to the Euros. And we've made it through this show. And I've done all right. and I have survived. Maybe I should tell Rutledge to just not come back, and it's just Connor Stream Sports. Maybe, maybe not though. I like having Rutledge around. But as we round out our show here this evening, I'm going to give some picks. And I'm going to be picking the Western Conference play-in tournament. First up tomorrow night, San Antonio at Memphis. I don't have a great feel for this one, but I am going to go Spurs, as I think Greg Popovich just has more experience in getting teams prepared for do or die games, which being the 9-10 matchup is the do or die game. Followed by Lakers versus Warriors. I'm picking Warriors here. I think Steph Curry is going to continue being just incredible. I think that even though LeBron James is technically healthy, I don't think that he is as healthy as he's letting on, and he's really limping into the playoffs. So those are my picks, and I hope you appreciate my picks. So usually I have some witty banter to have with Rutledge here this evening. By the end of the evening, but it looks like we won't be having that here tonight. But I do just want to thank everybody for participating who did. And I thank all of our podcast listeners. Feel free to subscribe to our podcast, give us a 5-star rating, and feel free also to subscribe to our YouTube channel. So we're very thankful. Rutledge and I enjoy doing our Friend Stream Sports show, and we look forward to doing it for many, many moons to come. Well, for Friend Stream Sports, I'm Connor, and I'm signing off, and we hope you have a great night.